Monster of is a skyscraper. When he moves, the whole earth quivers and quakes, and an abyss of horror opens up. See these prehistoric beasts emerge from the bowels of the earth after 200 million years to devastate mankind. Supersonic jets cannot catch him. Rockets cannot stop him. Armored tanks are helpless before him. Even guided missiles are powerless. See Rodan destroy a modern city, leveling it to the earth with a killing airstream of his mighty wings. Nothing can stop him. Nothing escapes this monstrous beast of evil.
Hey guys, this is Mario again, coming at you with another movie review. Today I'm reviewing another Daikaijū film. And yes, those are neighbors, in case you're wondering. The kids are out and about, but hopefully they won't interfere too much with the review. Like Godzilla Raids Again, this is a movie I haven't seen in a long time, but unlike Godzilla Raids Again, I only saw it once when I was a kid, and that was when it was once on AMC. Never rented it. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I only saw it to be more familiar with this character because I know he appeared in later Godzilla movies. And of course, one of the Godzilla movies he appeared in was Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which is one of my favorite of the Godzilla films. Anyway, the movie, which was released in Japan as Sora no Daikaijū Radon, which translates in as Radon, Giant Monster of the Sky. But it was released here originally as Rodan the Flying Monster. And of course this introduces the monster Rodan, or as he's known in Japan, Radon. Which the reason it's changed is to, at least this is what I've heard, it's changed in English to prevent confusion with the with the element Radon. But in the English dub of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla from the Heisei film series, it's still Radon. Makes me wonder why, because I think it's still listed as Rodan in the credits. But Rodan, I think, sounds more like a monster name anyway. But Radon actually is explained in the movie. The name comes from lessening the. It's taken letters from the phrase hold on, I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing this word. I know this has a silent P. Pteranodon, I think it's pronounced Pteranodon, excuse me, which is a pterodactyl-like creature, and I think a pterodactyl is in the family of them or something. I don't know, I'm not familiar with this type of reptile, but as you can tell from the title, this is the dubbed version of the movie, because the uncut version wasn't on Netflix, and I actually want to see the uncut version eventually. But so this is the dubbed version. Now, from what I understand, these are the changes that are made to the film in the dubbed version. Some of Akira Ifubuki's music was replaced with stock music. A prologue showing footage of American nuclear tests was added, which I know it's kind of like convention with the 50s B monster movies, but I think that actually kind of fits for the time that the movie came out to put that in there. kind of goes with the whole man should not be destroying nature stuff that some of these movies kind of have the vibe of. There was narration added by the character of Shiguru, which I'm gonna guess that's only in the English dub. Which, like the narration in Godzilla King of the Monsters, I think it's there for us dumb Americans to know what's going on. One thing I don't really like about the narration though is that I think it's kind of from the actor they got to do some of the dubbing, but he sounds like he's doing a stereotypical Japanese voice. You know, whenever you see something that has a stereotypical Asian in it, how they always give them that type of accent. You're like, oh, that you recognize, and you're like, oh, why did they do that? Like, it kind of reminds me of this voice that I saw in this one very stereotypical and racist Jello commercial where a baby was eating with chopsticks and like, oh, it's full Japanese babies, something like that. I'm like, oh, that's what the Shiguru's voice kind of reminds me of. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely a movie of its time. Couldn't get by with it dubbing like that nowadays. Let's see, and then there's other changes. Of course, like I mentioned, the name, some other shots and stuff from scene of some fighter jets was added. And they changed the name of a city destroyed in the movie from Fukuoka to Sasibo. I don't know, sometimes these names are hard to pronounce, I know. The reason is because our country had a diplomatic facility in that city, so it kind of looked bad. It was like, what happened to our people there? You know. And of course, edit later on in the movie to make it seem more like he was provoked or something. But one thing I will say that I noticed about that Rodan has in this movie, he doesn't have in the others, is he has like a breath weapon. You know, kind of like the breath weapon that the American Godzilla has in Godzilla Final Wars. You know, I think they took it out because they didn't want it to be confused with Godzilla's radiation breath. Because back in the days, they weren't like computer generated. It was actually an on-set thing, or it was actually breath. Not like a beam of energy. So that I don't mind, and as you can tell, since the Rodan suit does not look as good as it does in the later movies and stuff, but for a 50s Rodan suit, the suits are actually look pretty good. Not as good, obviously, as the Godzilla suit in the first Godzilla movie, but they still look pretty good. And I noticed that the similarities between them and the suit that was used in the next one, which how this movie ends. I'm not going to say what happens, but how this movie ends, it makes me wonder how the hell Rodan even was in the Godzilla movie, because they never explain it. Because, just a little hint, the same thing that happened to Godzilla in the first Godzilla movie, something like that happens to Rodan in this movie. The two Rodans, actually. Which, since there's two Rodans, the only explanation I can think of is that they mated and this was their offspring. But, it makes me wonder this. The Rodan in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, was an adult. Meaning it had to have grown up already. Meaning, how could it have been the offspring? Wouldn't it have been an egg? And it can't be these two because we see how they die. So it makes me wonder, hey, maybe they're going with the whole thing, you know, they burrowed underground and this one was fully formed, buried underground, and he just emerged. Then again, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if Toho even came up with an official explanation for it. And again, I don't think they came up with an explanation where the other Godzilla came from in the Showa series. I know in the Heisei series they did, but in the Showa one they never did. I'm guessing the Godzilla also affected by more radiation tests, I guess. If you guys remember from that vlog I did with Brandon, the insect monster scene in this were later reused in Godzilla vs. Megagyrus, or Megagyrus, or however you pronounce it. And here's a little interesting fact, I don't know if a lot of you will know, but Rodan is actually mentioned in passing in a Stephen King book. It is mentioned in passing because, I gotta look this, see, because I don't remember the name of the character offhand. The character of Stan, I think it's either Stan or Mike, who sees it as a giant bird. And it reminds him of Rodan, especially if you look at how Rodan looks like on the poster. Because on the poster, he looks more like a bird than he does like a flying reptile. And if my research is right, the English dub of this movie was actually a financial success when it came out. From what I'm reading, it grossed about $500,000 during its opening weekend. Which, if you think about it, back in the day, for a movie like this, that's actually a pretty good amount of money for a movie like this. Now, what is my rating for the movie? Well, I haven't seen the original, so I can't really compare. But if you compare it as a standalone dubbed movie, it's a lot better, in my opinion, than Godzilla Raids Again. I'll give you that. And only one of the voices I found stereotypical, and that's our main lead. And other than that, it's actually a pretty good movie. I rated it a 3.5 out of 5 stars if I were to rate it, because it's slightly better than Godzilla Raids Again, but it still has some of that feeling of it. That's one reason I really want to see the original version, especially considering this movie was directed by Ishiro Honda, the guy who directed the original Godzilla, and who also, by the way, directed. There's actually some other good movies that I've heard that were good monster movies he directed too. He directed. Hold on, I'm in the wrong one. Hold on, I clicked the wrong one. Not his filmography. Now I'm in his filmography. He also directed The Mysterians, which is the movie that introduced us to Manda, and I believe Mogura, and I think Gazora, or Gazora was in another movie, I think. He also directed Varan the Unbelievable, which he only has a small cameo in Destroy All Monsters, which was another movie directed by Ishiro Honda. And he also directed, of course, the first Mothra movie. Oh man, wait a minute. It's not the Mysterians. That's not the one that introduced Amanda. It was, I believe, Antragon, but it was another movie directed by him. So, right director, wrong movie. Excuse me. And of course, the last movie he ended up directing was Terror of Mechagodzilla. So, he started the Showa series and he ended the Showa series. Kind of ironic. I don't know what else to say about this movie. It is what it is. It's a monster movie. It has some enjoyable entertainment. The suits by today's standards obviously are not good, but for 50s they actually look pretty good. The Rodan suits to me look better than the insect suits, because the insect suits, you could tell that they're really fake looking, but the Rodan suits are pretty good. And I like the egg designs too, and the ending looks pretty good. But one thing I will say is by the time that they made Ghidorah the three-headed monster, they actually got Rodan's flying scene to be a lot better, because they look a lot better in subsequent films, along with the suit armor, obviously. Anyway, that concludes this review. If you're a fan of giant monster movies and you haven't seen this movie, I say give it a watch.